we should be.
All right, well, this is, if you please call the roll.
For the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Como? Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Here.
Mr. Jimenez?
Here.
Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Meyer? Mr. Meyer?
Absent.
Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Mr. Rudolph?
Here.
Ms. Troyanik?
Here.
Mr. Turner?
Here.
Okay, so quorum of Board of Education is present. The public hearing regarding the waivers for instructional minutes and civic control pursuant to Wisconsin statute 118.381
Can't understand
of
things.
April 2020 of the order. Now have the pledge of allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag.
Pledge
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
So I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing regarding waivers for instructional minutes and the civics exam pursuant to the Wisconsin statute 118.38, parent 1, parent 8, parent B.
Second.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm following along with the executive content here and trying to figure out what else.
The second was Keontae Turner.
So the public hearing is being held to review the school district of La Crosse's request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction to look at the requirements of Wisconsin statute 121.021F, Wisconsin statute 118.331MA, the 2019-20 school year, in light of the impact of the COVID-19 health emergency resulted in a mandate statewide closure of schools. Is there anyone who would like to address the request? I can't see the audience, Laura, so I'm going to rely
There is
on you to
no
let me
one.
know.
There is no one here to make public
There is no
comment.
one here that wants to speak.
So there is no one here to make public comment.
Okay. Again, help me out just a little bit. I heard Dave make a motion and Keontae second it, but I'm having a hard time finding that in the content. I'm wondering, I don't see where there was a motion that needed to be made, but unless I'm overlooking it.
My read was that would be a vote to approve the agenda to have a public hearing, but the intent would be that an actual vote by the board to approve a waiver would come at the next board meeting, which could be the 27th possibly on the superintendent's consent agenda. So my read on this was that the motion was to approve the agenda to have the public hearing, but
Yes.
not to approve the waiver. That'll happen at a future meeting.
The motion is to open the public hearing.
The
just so
public
that we
hearing
can
is
convene
finished.
the public hearing.
Now, the waivers will be approved at the regular meeting.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then we can move to point 3 or 3.01. Since there's no one here to speak, hearing no further or no requests from the public, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Rudolph made a motion.
Mike,
We
make
just
a
need a
motion to close
second.
public hearing.
Okay, a motion was made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Ms. Como to close the public hearing. We will have a roll call vote for that.
Ms. Como? Aye. Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye.
Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph,
Aye.
Ms. Traianic,
Aye.
Mr. Turner.
Aye.
So we will now adjourn to the regular Board of Education meeting.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for the regular board meeting as
Second.
presented.
Second.
Give me just a second so I can pull up the other one.
Mr. Korberg seconded it.
All right, so a motion has been made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Mr. Korberg to approve the agenda as submitted. We will have a roll call vote to approve that.
Ms. Como? Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph?
Aye.
Mr. Turner? Mr. Turner?
Aye, pardon.
That's okay. Ms. Traianic?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye. So we don't have anyone registered to speak this evening, so we'll move right into consent agenda announcements.
Well, board members, a couple of announcements. I'm going to let Mark White, our Director of Human Resources, announce a couple of things from the Human Resources side, and then I have an announcement to make as well. Mr. White, thank you.
Thank you. Tonight on your consent agenda for HR, you'll see the issuance of the 2021 teacher contracts. It's at this time of year that we need to come to the board to get your approval to issue the contracts for the next school year to the individual teachers who we will employ for next school year. Those are required to be out by May 15th and in the hands of the teaching staff. And in light of the way things are right now in the world and in the state and in the district, we still will be moving forward with issuing those contracts. That law has remained the same. There is no change to that. May 15th is the date, so we intend to move forward, so your vote tonight will accomplish that. Also, I wanted to let you know that while you don't see any retirements on the agenda tonight, we've had about 30-some people who have put in retirement over the course of from June of last year until the current date. We were scheduled, as many things have changed, we were scheduled on May 15th to have a district retirement dinner at Piggy's, which is not open, and you cannot have gatherings that large because typically we're pushing 100 by the time we have invitees and everyone else. So looking at the governor's order today of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we would have to get to phase 3 before we could have that particular event. So we know that we're going to continue and plan to honor our retirees if it can be done in that manner and at some sort of timely manner through the summer or early fall. We'll certainly try to do it in a similar manner, and if we're not able to do it, if we don't get to phase 3 in the state as quickly as that, which we all of course hope that we will, then we'll figure out something else. But we will be sure to honor the retirees, including the 2 retirees from the school board, Mr. Rudolph and Mrs. Traianic. We want to be sure to include them. They are included, and we want to thank them as well as all the retirees for the years that they put into the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
The consent agenda is a mechanism used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda? With a motion made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Mr. Korberg, the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented. We will have a roll call vote.
Ms. Como? Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph?
Aye.
Mr. Turner?
Aye.
Ms. Traianic?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye. We will now move to the board consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Mr. Korberg to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented. We will have a roll call vote for that.
Ms. Como? Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph?
Aye.
Mr. Turner?
Aye.
Ms. Tryanik?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye. Thank you, Laura. So we'll now move to the renewal of charter school contracts.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 5-year 2020 to 2021 to 2024, 2025 charter school contracts as presented.
A motion has been made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Ms. Como to approve the 5-year, the 2020 through 2021, the 2024 to 2025 charter school contracts as presented. Is there any discussion? Laura, if you will, we'll have a roll call vote.
Yep, Ms. Como? Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph?
Aye.
Mr. Turner?
Aye.
Ms. Tryanik?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye.
Then I'd like to make a motion to approve the closure of the Lacrosse Roads Charter High Schools and continue as a program embedded in both Central High School and Logan High School.
A motion has been made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Ms. Como to approve the closure of the Lacrosse Roads Charter High Schools and continue as a program embedded in both Central High School and Logan High School. Is there any discussion? Okay, Laura, let's have a roll call vote.
Ms. Como? Mr. Jimenez?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph?
Aye.
Mr. Turner? Mr. Turner?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Tryanik?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper Stoll?
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the quarterly budget report.
Well, board members, again, at this time of the year, we have an opportunity for the board to hear about our current budget and where we are in the process as we're about 3/4 of the way through our fiscal year. And so Patty Sprang, our Executive Director of Business Services, is here this evening to review the document that has been attached to your board agenda this evening. Patty, thank you for your work here this evening.
Sure. So this is our quarterly report. This is the report that you actually see on a monthly basis, but we look at it on a quarterly basis to see if we are, in comparison to last year, on track. And I really have nothing to tell you that we are out of line anywhere right now. Our revenues are running about the same as last year, and so are our expenditures, both by function and object. The impact of the COVID leave is not shown at this time because March was pretty much, January, February, March were pretty much on schedule. So do you have any questions? All righty, thank you.
Are there any questions, Ms. Sprang? No. Thank you. All right, so we're now moved to announcements. Mr. Korberg.
Just a few short things with the Lacrosse Public Education Foundation. We have a meeting next week, but we did meet online with Mr. Nelson, who updated the board about the ongoing COVID-19 impacts.
I'm gonna probably sign off here now,
Other than that, we will be
before they get to announcements from Randy.
Connie, your microphone is on.
Okay, it's okay. Thank you. I was trying to let you know I need to sign off. So,
Thanks, Connie.
thanks, bye.
See ya.
Mr. Korberg, did you finish your announcements?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a couple of announcements here on April 27th. That's going to be our board reorganizational meeting. I'll send an email about that to the board this week. We have 2 new board members who will be joining us for that. And I just want to make sure that we maintain as much transparency as possible in this process. So I'm going to be reaching out to all of the board members and seeing who is interested in serving in what capacity. So look for that email this week. Let's see, May 4th, 2020, the Board of Education, we have a regular meeting there as well. The other thing that I want to make sure that we address this evening is, and now I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, Randy, or not, but I certainly want to acknowledge the service of Dave and Connie, the many, many years of service of both of them on the board, the contributions that they have made. It is so incredibly apparent that they just value doing whatever possible to serve the students in our district, as well as our teachers and staff and community members as well. So thank you to both of you for your service to the Board of Education and the community. Are there any others who would like to say anything at this point? Or Randy, I'm guessing from what Connie said, you have something that you want to say?
Actually, no, I was surprised that Connie had to break away from the meetings. I hadn't really, it's not that I hadn't planned anything, but certainly wanted to make sure we spent some time to make sure this evening that we honor our outgoing board members here this evening. So this is as good a time as any. So I would just mention, much as you have said, that I think being a school board member is kind of the ultimate servant leadership to a community. And to children, and to families, to parents, to teachers, to society in general. And I think that I can tell you that as superintendent for the last 9 years, I've been blessed with great people who have had foresight for our community, who have spoken beautifully with regard to our community, who have reflected the values of a community that's ever changing. People who have understood the plight and the challenges, but also the great things to celebrate in a community like La Crosse. And we've just had outstanding board members, and both Dave Rudolph, Connie Tronick, as they end their careers as board members, have done an outstanding job, served our community well, and served everyone well. And I want to thank you, Dave, as you're here this evening. I want to thank you for your years of service. And Connie, if you're still listening, I want to thank you for your years of service as well. On behalf of the community and our staff, thank you for your support for children. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So now it's me with other announcements
Nelson,
then?
do you have any other announcements?
Yeah, just 1 minute. So a couple of things that are on my list to talk about. Just a quick closure update. We continue to meet and discuss feverishly the next decisions that must be made as a result of the governor's closure of school to the end of the school year. We have since determined that end of the school year means June 30th. And so even as we are looking at summer school, for instance, we can continue to offer school and supports and remote learning as we currently are, but we're not going to be able to run our summer school courses, especially some of the enrichment and face-to-face courses that we've been able to run in the past, at least through June 30th. So our team is meeting on almost a daily basis to discuss the ramifications of that and how we were to move forward. I know that our Director of Secondary Education, Secondary Learning, and our principals at our high schools are talking a lot about what does this mean for graduation. And I will tell you, we have received a lot of feedback about graduation, everything from, it's okay, we get it, this is historical, and just, if it's necessary, just mail our diplomas to us, we demand a formal ceremony of some sort. And so I know that our principals are trying to take as much feedback and ideas as they can to come up with a way that we will be able to honor our students, especially the class of 2020, knowing that it's not going to be done in the same way that it traditionally has. So this work continues. We have a lot of things yet to talk about. Can our year-round schools, which typically start July 15th or 18th, someplace in there, will they be able to start up? And for that matter, what does our July summer school situation look like? And then, of course, it's a discussion about school in the fall and how that may have to be different. What if we have to open school and still have to adhere to some of the social distancing policies? And we also are well aware that I think no matter how far along we are with opening things back up again, I think there are going to be some students who we may not see in the fall, and I think we have to be prepared to provide for them perhaps a continuation of what we're currently doing and ramp that up for those students as well. So there is a lot of planning that's going on. I am really tired of virtual meetings myself, to be honest with you. I don't know about anyone else and how much you've had to use virtual meetings. I really prefer face-to-face, everyone in the same room, but this is the way we need to do it for now. But I just want to assure everyone that we continue to work diligently on all of the plans that have to be made in order to smooth a transition to the end of the school year. For that matter, you also would want to know that our Dr. Engel, our new superintendent, has been in the loop and has been involved in some of our discussions along the way. I met with him for a couple of hours yet today as we've started a transition process together at the same time. So a lot of things moving forward, and we will continue to keep the board apprised of decisions that we're making, and of course, our parents and our staff as well. That being said, we will unfortunately not be able to do face-to-face kinds of acknowledgements for our May 4th to 8th, when it is School Health Team Appreciation Week, and also Teacher and Sub-Teacher Appreciation Week. Also, May 6th to 12th is National Nurses Week, and May 11th through 15th, National Police and Police Officer Week. And so we have connections in all of those areas, and this year we will have to celebrate and acknowledge those individuals differently than we've ever done so in the past. Those are my updates. Looking forward to our meeting next Monday evening. And please, board, I would anticipate that in addition to the reorganizational requirements that the board has for next Monday, there may be some consent agenda items that would come through as well as we continue to have a pretty fluid situation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Are there any other announcements that board members would like to make at this time? Okay, so we're going to move to agenda planning.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 27th, 2020 Board of Education Reorganizational Meeting and the May 4th, 2020 Board of Educational Meeting, and wish you good luck on both.
Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Mr. Jimenez to approve the April 27th, 2020 Board Reorganizational Agenda with any additions or corrections. Mr. Rudolph, I am going to miss you leading us all in those motions. So, Laura, would you please go through the roll?
I certainly will. Are we doing this just for the reorg, or do we want to try to do a combo with the May 4th agenda as well?
He moved them.
Yes,
The motion
that would be
was
great,
moved.
actually.
With the
So
both, yes.
then, with,
So it's a motion
was it
by
second on
Dave.
that as well?
What's that?
Did Mr. Jimenez second that as well?
Mr. Korberg did.
Okay. All right, so the motion was made by Mr. Rudolph and seconded by Mr. Korberg, was that right?
Yes.
Okay.
For
All
both
right,
to
to
April
approve the May 4th,
27th.
2020 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections. All right, roll call vote.
All right, Ms. Como. Aye. Mr. Jimenez.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Korberg.
Aye.
Mr. Rudolph.
Aye.
Mr. Turner.
Aye.
And we no longer have Ms. Trionic on the line. Dr. Cooper Stoll.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, board debriefing. Does anyone have anything they want to contribute at this point?
Hopefully, Mr. Rudolph, you will be on speed dial when we need coaching on making motions.
Yes. Agreed.
It's been awesome to get to know the guy that I fixed his windshield wiper for. It's been, you brought that to my attention one of our very first meetings.
What, that what?
That I fixed your windshield wiper. when
Yes,
I
you
was
did.
in-
Yes, you did.
It's been great
I
to
went in
get to know
panicked
you.
and naive and went to Como's and son of a gun, this young gal came out and, oh yeah, I can put that on for you. She fixed my windshield.
So you helped
See?
me grow into the person I am today, so thank you.
It's good. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Connie, if you're still there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie and David, for your service.
And now
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna-
if there's nothing more, we're gonna adjourn the meeting and, again, look for, I'll have a couple emails coming out to board members, this week.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe and healthy, everyone.
Stay healthy,
Good night.
everybody.